mtamjibu pia mheshimiwa. Ningependa mwanzo kuanza na kupongeza viongozi wa bunge hili kwa kuweza kuleta huu mswada. Pili, nipongeze tume ya wakfu iliyochaguliwa na rais wetu mpendwa ikiongozwa na chair wao ambao ni Zuber Nur, Sheikh Juma Ngao, Nagib Shamsan, Hussein Sharif na wakili Mwanakitina. Hawa ni watu wasomi, ni watu wenye sifa nzuri kwa jamii. So walifanya hii bill au mswada ukawa ni mswada mzuri na tunauamini. Bwana Spika, nataka kuanza mwanzo wa mswada huu. Uzuri wake ni kwamba sio kwamba hii sheria inatungwa sahihi. Hii sheria ilikuweko, lakini hii sheria imetungwa. Uzuri wake ni kwamba ilikuwa mwanzo sheria ile inasema upande mmoja kama upande wa pwani peke yake, lakini hii sheria sasa imekuwa ni Kenya mzima, itakuwa ni ya Kenya yote. Hapo ni pahali tofauti tuelewe kwa wale ambao hawajaelewa. Sheria iko, lakini sasa hii imeongeza maeneo. Pili ni kwamba mambo ya hisabu, mambo ya pesa yameangaliwa vizuri. Itakuwa watu hawana wasiwasi kwamba pesa zimetumika vibaya. Mambo yake yameangaliwa vizuri katika hii sheria. Na lingine pia, wakati wa kuomba nafasi za tume, itakuwa mtu ana apply na haitakuwa ni watu wale ambao watakuwa kwa tume siku zote. Uzuri wake ingine pia imepatia nafasi ya hii wakfu kuweza kujiendeleza. Kwa lugha ya kimombo naweza kusema imepatia capacity ya wakfu, imeongeza. Sio kwamba ni sheria mpya, ni sheria ilikuweko, lakini imeongeza tu vitu iweze kufanya kazi vizuri. Bwana Spika, mimi nashangaa na kiongozi mwenzangu kusimama kusudi kuleta tu taharuki hapa. Nimeshangaa hata hii mambo ya radicalization imeingia vipi kwenye hii wakfu. Ni mtu ni kusudi, nimenyosha pale nimesema ni kusudi tu ionekane kama kuna taharuki, na hakuna taharuki. Mwanzo hii sheria ikipita ndio pesa itajulikana inatumika vipi, inaingia vipi, inaenda vipi, kwa sababu hisabu ziko sawa sawa. Pili, si sawa kwa mbunge mwenzetu kufanya kama lugha ya Kiswahili kwamba ni lugha dhaifu, ni lugha ambayo haifai. Mtu akizungumza Kiingereza ndo anakuwa msomi. Sisi kule kwetu pwani tuna mabeach boy tele na wanazungumza fluent English, na ni mabeach boy hakwenda hata standard 1. Kwa hivyo usijifanye kwamba kizungu chako pengine umesoma lakini huna hikma. Wakfu ni mzuri hii, na naomba wabunge wenzangu tuishikane, tuipitishe. Isiwe kama sahihi kuna kama vuguvugu laendelea kwa mitandao. Tuwaona mara mambo wasema Wakristo wanafanywa hivi, Waislamu hawatafanywa hivi. Hayo si mambo mazuri, si mambo ya kuchochea katika Kenya. Sisi Kenya tumekaa vizuri kwa mambo ya dini, tumeshikana. Kwa hivyo tuendelee kushikana, kabila zote na dini zote hapa Kenya. Asante Bwana Spika.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me an opportunity to contribute to this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, as I do that, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Majority Whip for tabling this report and for actually presenting it so well. I also want to thank Mheshimiwa Adan Duale for really going into detail and making the members understand what really Wakfi is all about. And I also want to thank all the members for contributing and for the kind of tolerance that is really demonstrated by members here. Mr. Speaker, I also would like to just go back again and just try to explain what Waqf is all about. It's very simple. It is a property dedicated to the society, e.g. a building or a piece of land for religious purpose and for charitable purpose thereafter. Mr. Speaker, as I define this, I want to make a very special tribute to one Sheikh Abdullahi Golicha Guyo Wama from my county. And I'm just wishing that Mheshimiwa Duale, Mheshimiwa Shakil Shabir could be in this house to really support me in this. And I'm sure even my brother here will agree with me. He is one known leader in this country who have really demonstrated what Waqf is all about. In my county, all the people, including the member of parliament from Isiolo North, is a beneficiary of a Waqf. He was educated through the proceeds of Waqf from primary school all the way to university. And many, many students from Isiolo County, especially those from poor families. Mr. Speaker, we have a Marti Waqf in Marti sub-county. Marti had both Christians and Muslims. And those are people from my community. And most of them actually benefited from Waqf. And that should answer what Mheshimiwa is saying. The law is put just so that there is clarity. But Sadaqah is one of the pillars of Islam. And you don't choose whom to give Sadaqah. You can give Sadaqah to a Muslim, you can give to a Christian. But this one is a specific fund, a fund that is distributed for a cause, an Islamic cause. Therefore, it is not right for Mheshimiwa Chris to try to bring confusion here. And that should be very clear. I am a Muslim, Mr. Speaker, and I pay Sadaqah even to Christian. And Sadaqah is so personal that it is said when you are giving with the right hand, even the left hand should not know. But this is totally different. This is a fund that is donated for a cause. And most of the people who are donating these funds are people doing on behalf of their deceased family members, so that it becomes a sadaqatul jariyah. A sadaqah that in the event that, because we feel like those who are dead will have a life after, it goes in helping you. If you have a sin, your sins will be forgiven. So therefore, establishing this commission will bring a lot of clarity. Establishing a commission will ensure that there is accountability and there is transparency in how this fund is regulated. And I have just told you one old man, Sheikh Abdullahi Golicha. He has never married in his life because he wanted, if he had children, probably he thought the money will somehow go to his family. So he dedicated. He has a Waqf which was built in Isiolo, collecting rent and helping the poor. He is educating, he's helping the orphans, and he goes in a long way. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to invite my brother Chris to one of these weekends, accompany me to Isiolo, so that you can really appreciate what this fund does for people. Mr. Speaker, some time back, there was a lot of propaganda, bad publicity, that the money that comes from outside the country in terms of donations, it has been said it is the money that were funding illegal activities like Al-Shabaab. Some are even giving it a lot of negativity until, Mr. Speaker, the poor in this country suffered. Therefore, when we establish a waqf with clear trustees who can be sued and who can sue, we will be able to establish the source of the fund and how the fund is utilized, Mr. Speaker. In that way, there will be a prudent utilization of resources. It is said that all the waqf will be registered by the commission. Registering the fund in a commission will make it possible to even follow it up on a daily basis to know who are the beneficiaries, how the fund is utilized, where the fund is coming from. Mr. Speaker, I am quite excited when they said that the trustee, when it fails to utilize the funds as per the regulation, then the fund can even revert to the family. Those are some of the things that are lacking. Mr. Speaker, there are some funds in this country that all the family members have gone, and it is not under anybody. And therefore, the fund is just there. There is no way it can be regulated. When I went through it, in the bill, it was even captured on how this fund can be put in the waqf. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think this is one law that should have been enacted way back. It will have really gone a long way in supporting the poor, in bringing a lot of clarity. I therefore want to really even appreciate the committee of JLAC, and the vice chair is here, is guiding us very well. Thank you so much. Let us fast track it. Let us ensure that this is something that will really work for this country. And I'm inviting members to come to my county for benchmarking, because that is where waqf has really worked. I support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Odhiambo Akoth.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, Geza, not Sega, Mr. Speaker. You know, that's a brand. Million Geza is a brand. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that contrary to what members are saying here, I don't think we should make this bill an Islamic bill. The moment a bill comes before the floor of this House and the House is seized of it, it is a bill of the National Assembly. And we should refrain from making it look like if there is a member who supports it, they are supporting it because they are Muslim, or if they oppose it, they are opposing it because they are not Muslim. Mr. Speaker, I've listened to Honorable Chris Wamalwa very clearly, and I think even some of the points of orders were really premature, because he was raising concerns that we should respond to instead of hounding him, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that I support, but even in supporting me, I have issues that I want to raise. And Mr. Speaker, this is the waqf bill has been there before, the Waqf Act has been there before, but what this bill is seeking to do is to expand the scope. And when it is expanding the scope, we must test it against constitutionality. Mr. Speaker, in testing it against constitutionality, the guiding principle is that the Constitution only allows discrimination on matters of personal law. We must test it against personal law. And I don't think it is right for people to challenge us that you are not friends of Muslim if you raise issues that are constitutional. Mr. Speaker, we must test it against governance standards, because the moment taxpayers' money is being used over an issue, then I must raise governance issues. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I will also bring issues here of Seventh-day Adventists that I am, and we pass, and nobody should talk about it. But the moment it comes before this House, this is a bill of the House. And let every member support. There are issues I support here, and let every member oppose the issues that I may oppose here. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that also my own fellow Christians should not behave here as though they have never read the Bible. The Bible is very clear about giving. So let us also not talk like this is something so new that we have never seen or heard of. that we are saying that the way I respect my good friend and brother, Honorable Duale, but I can assure him I'm not changing my faith anytime soon because he's brought the work bill. And I can tell him there are more than 30 provisions in the Bible that talks about giving. I can give a few examples. Proverbs 19 verse 17 says, whoever is generous to the poor gives to the Lord. And Romans 12:13 that talks about supplying the needs of the saints. And even if you look at the same Romans, which is a letter that Paul wrote to the Romans, he actually was on a mission, even fundraising for the poor. And he talks about several people. Actually, if you look at the last chapter, which is chapter 16, he's sending greetings to several people and encouraging them and giving them accolades for supporting the church. So, Mr. Speaker, what the Muslim faith is doing is similar to what the church is doing, and none is superior than the other. On issues of faith, I don't think we should be talking about which is superior or not. Let us just respect each other's faiths and see whether the standards that we are providing here are constitutional or not. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that even as much as I support the bill, because I think to a great extent it meets the constitutional standards of personal law, but I would be concerned about certain aspects that I think are going beyond. Mr. Speaker, and I will be bringing amendments because there are very many, I may not mention all of them, so I will just pick some few. Mr. Speaker, let me just wear my glasses. Sorry. Mr. Speaker, it basically sets a structure for Muslims to endow property or cash to a religious, charitable, or benevolent purpose in accordance with Islamic law. Mr. Speaker, I was listening very carefully to Honorable Adan Duale, and just like Honorable Chris, I want to see where in the Quran it excludes other faithfuls. If he convinces me it is in the Quran, I will not argue. The way I don't argue with the Bible, I don't argue with the Quran. But the Bible talks about including everyone, including Muslims. So there is no reason to exclude Christians in getting money from the Waqf. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that I want to talk about, and therefore I think we'll bring an amendment to ensure that it includes everyone that may be needy. Mr. Speaker, I also want to say that some of the issues that I want to say is on the definition of the Waqf Khairi. It would be tidy if you added the word solely, so that you make it clear from Waqf Ali for individuals and for Waqf Mushtarak, which is a blend of both. I wish Honorable Duale was here because then he would understand what I'm saying. Then in clause 4, Mr. Speaker, is there specific Islamic law relating to Waqf that can be restated here in law so that lawyers do not go digging in case of disputes? Those are issues that we need to sort out here. Otherwise, we'll have a problem when these matters come to court. And Mr. Speaker, I want to also indicate that I used to practice in the Qadhi's court representing women, so I also know what I'm talking about. Mr. Speaker, in clause 4, the proviso in clause 4 makes any property subject to a Waqf, and only property intended and declared as such should be included. But by the provisions, it makes almost every property subject. Again, if you look at clause 4.2, it seems to create trust in perpetuity for unknown causes. That is very dangerous, Mr. Speaker. It might go back to the property of my greatest grandfather, is called Magazime. Mr. Speaker, we look for the property of Magazime and make it a property of Waqf if we can declare that he was a Muslim. We cannot create properties in succession in perpetuity. Mr. Speaker, clause 6 and other clauses refer to trustees and even mete out punishments to them. And I think that is one of the things that even my friend Jaldesa is saying as a positive, which indeed it is. But how are they established or appointed? This law does not tell us how the trustees are established or appointed. They are not legal entities by this law. Hence, they cannot be held to account. We cannot subject a lot of property to this act when we are not able to establish trustees by law and hold them accountable by law. So if we say we are punishing the trustees and we are taking them for life, or how many, who are they? The law does not establish who they are. Mr. Speaker, in clause 7, the word or between D and E in the last sentence creates a different meaning. It implies those under E may not be subject to the panel. It's actually an error, which I hope when the Justice Committee is looking, they'll sort it out. In clause 7.2, the selection panel is said shall comprise of 5 eminent Muslims of either gender. What that actually means is that you can actually select only men, or you can only select only women. That is also unconstitutional. I think the person who was crafting this did that in error, because it should be 2/3. The selection in representation, that is not excluded. Governance issues are not excluded, even when we are dealing with Muslim issues that come before the floor of this House. Mr. Speaker, clause 7.4 states the selection panel shall invite views from Muslims in respect of the shortlisted candidates. Mr. Speaker, my immediate neighbor is a Muslim, a very nice guy. But supposing he was a terrible person who is a night runner who gives us stress in our neighborhood, and I see his name listed, my view shall not be taken because I'm a Muslim. Hell no. I will give my views by law. So we cannot exclude and say that we will not give views because we are not Muslims. Mr. Speaker, I can see my time is almost up, but I have several issues, governance issues, constitutional issues, that we must bring to make sure we tighten this law so that it meets constitutional standards. And I want to encourage my Muslim sisters and brothers. I have a very big population of Muslims in my own constituency that I represent. Once this law is here, it is a law for Kenya. This is the National Assembly. We will strengthen it the way we strengthened other pieces of legislation. It does not mean we oppose you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support with amendments.
Honorable Nasil.
Asante sana, Bwana Spika. Kwanza naanza kumwomba Mola nipanue mbavu zangu, anirahisishie majukumu yangu. Naomba Mola nitatutie fundo katika ulimi wangu ili walioko waweze kufahamu yale ninayosema, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, wakfu kwa lugha nyingine yoyote ni mtu anachokitoa kwa ajili ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Na hii kuzungumza kuhusiana na wakfu, Bwana Spika, wazee wetu wa karne zilizopita, kabla hii Kenya kujulikana ya kwa itaitwa Kenya, kuna watu tangu karne hizo walitoa mali yao na wakaamua ya kwa kufuatia mafundisho ya Qur'an na Bwana Mtume ambao tunamswalia, wakaweza kufuata mafundisho ya kwa katika mambo ambayo kwamba tutakayoyawacha hapa na ataturithi sisi. Mojawapo ni lile jambo la heri unalolifanya likane lenye kuendelea. Jengine ni elimu ambayo kwamba inapatia faida watu. Jengine ni mtoto mwema, na tunaomba Mwenyezi Mungu ya kuwa tujaliwe ya kuwa ni sababu ya wazee wetu kufika pema palipo na wema. Bwana Spika, hii jambo la wakfu nimesikia wengi wakizungumza hapa, si geni katika Kenya. Hii sheria ipo tangu mwaka 1948. Hivi tunavyofanya sasa hivi ni kujaribu kuweza kuifanya sheria hii, na kama wanavyozungumza wenzangu, madhumuni ya kuifanya sheria hii ni ili iweze kuandamana pamoja na katiba ya Kenya. Bwana Spika, nataka waweze kufahamu sheria ilivyo sasa hivi. Hii ni mapendekezo ya kubadilisha hii sheria. Sheria ambayo inaweza kuhukumu masala ya wakfu, wakiwemo ndani yake, kwanza, Kuna zamani tulikuwa tuna provincial commissioners, ma-PC. Wale ambao walikuwa ni commissioners, Bwana Spika, kwanza katika sheria ilivyo sasa hivi ni PC. Pili, chief kadhi wa Kenya ambaye kwamba hana kura. Tatu, Bwana Spika, Muislamu yoyote ambaye anachaguliwa na waziri, na waziri anayeweza kufahamika katika sheria ilivyo ni waziri ambaye kwamba alikuwa anahusika na masuala ya sheria wakati ule. Kisha Bwana Spika, Waislamu 5 ambao Waislamu hao wataweza kuchaguliwa na gavana, na nikisema gavana sio magavana walio sasa hivi katika katiba. Kwa wale wenye kufahamu historia ya Kenya, sehemu za pwani zilikuwa na magavana. Hii sheria ya mwaka 1948 inazungumza ya kwa PC ya wakati ule ataweza kuchagua, kisha gavana aweze kupitisha ya kwa watu 5 wengine. Sasa angalia tofauti ya sheria ya pale na sasa hivi. Sasa hivi tunazungumza ya kwa katika watakaochaguliwa, Bwana Spika, kwanza mtu aliyeweza kusoma dini. Pili, mwakilishi ambao waloweza kutoa. Tukizungumza kuhusiana na trustee ni wale ambao kwamba walotoa. Tatu, mwakilishi ambao kwamba watakaoweza kufaidi. 4, mfanyibiashara maarufu. 5, aliyesoma sheria, wakili. 6, mweka hesabu, mtu ambaye amebobea katika hesabu. 7, aliyebobea katika hesabu za masala ya ardhi. 8, ambaye anayefanya kazi na jamii, kwa lugha ya Kiingereza social worker. Sasa angalia, ikiwa kuna sheria ambayo kwamba ilikuwa hailingani na katiba, ni hii ambayo inafanywa sasa, ama ile ambayo inazungumza kuhusiana na ma-PC na magavana ndio wenye kuchagua. Tena sio kuchagua yoyote, kuchagua mtu yoyote, kama dadangu alivyozungumza ya kwa ni lazima mtu atakayeweza kuchaguliwa awe na nidhamu fulani. Tena wanaochaguliwa hapa, inasisitiza zaidi sheria hii ya kwa ni lazima waweze kupita mtihani ulioko katika katiba, awe ni mtu wa kisawasawa katika jamii hii. Sasa mimi nawaomba na nawarai na wasihi wenzangu wote, tukiiangalia sheria hii tuiangalie kwa mtizamo ya kwa tunajaribu kuweka sheria iweze kubadili sheria iliyowekwa mwaka 1948. Bwana Spika, sheria hii inazungumza, ambayo haijabadilishwa, inazungumza ya kuwa waziri mhusika siku atakayoinuka na kuamua yeye, ndiyo siku ambayo mkaguzi ama auditor ataweza kuangalia hesabu. Haimaanishi ya kwa hesabu zinaangaliwa, na sasa hivi watu wana vilio ya kwa ardhi watu wameweza kuzitoa, hatujui fedha zimeenda vipi, kwa sababu hakuna sheria ambayo kwamba iliyoko. Hii ya sasa ambayo tunataka kuipitisha inazungumzia ya kuwa kuweza kuangalia fedha zile zilioko pale ni lazima ziweze kupitia Public Finance Management na Public Audit Act, sheria ambazo kwamba ukiangalia undani wake hakuna anayeweza kutoa chake ili kiweze kutumika kwa ufisadi, hakuna anayeweza kutoa chake ili kiweze kutumika kwa ugaidi. Na nataka tena kusisitiza, masala ya wakfu ni lazima yaweze kutumika. Yule ambaye kwamba anayetoa ardhi yake haiwezi kutumika kwa jambo ambalo kwamba haliambatani na dini ya Uislamu. Uislamu haukubali ugaidi. Uislamu haukubali fedha kuweza kuchukuliwa kuweza kwenda katika masala ya madawa ya kulevya. Uislamu haukubali ya kwa fedha ziweze kuchukuliwa ziende katika mambo ya mabaa. Sasa kuna lipi zaidi ambalo kwamba halipo, halijaangaliwa, halijazingatiwa, halijawekwa katika nyoyo zetu ili tuweze kuangalia haya? Tena nasisitiza tena, angalieni Azhar University iliyoko Misri ilianzishwa na wakfu. Leo Azhar University ina zaidi ya mwaka 1000, bwana Spika. Walioweza kupitia Azhar University wamo Waislamu na ambao kwamba si Waislamu ndani yake. Katika watu ambao kwamba waloweza kutoa ardhi zao wakaweza kuipeana ili iwe ni wakfu katika karne zile ambazo kwamba ziliweza kupita mpaka leo, zile thawabu, yale mazuri hayaendi tu kwao ambao kwamba walioko chini ya ardhi na mili yao iko chini ya ardhi lakini nyoyo zao ziko juu, lakini kwa wale ambao walioko sasa hivi. Kuna madaktari wangapi ambao kwamba katika dunia hii wameweza kusomeshwa kupitia na wakfu? Kuna wangapi ambao wameweza kupitia na wakaweza kusomeshwa kupitia na wakfu? Kuna ubaya gani kesho kutwa na miaka inayokuja azuke mtoto mmoja kutoka sehemu za Western, azuke mtoto mmoja kutoka Nyanza, azuke mtoto mmoja kutoka Pwani, ainuke na awe katika bunge hili na aseme ya kwa lao ingelikuwa si ile wakfu iloweza kuwekwa ikatumika kwa mijibu ya kisheria, mimi leo ningelikukosie ambaye kwamba naweza kusimama hapa. Na wasihi na warai, tuangalie sheria hizi tukiwa tumeweza kupanua mbavu zetu. Tuangalie sheria hizi, bwana Spika, tukiwa tumeweza kukubali ya kwa hii ni sheria ambayo kwamba tayari iko. Lile ambalo kwamba linafanyika ni kuibadili sheria hii iweze kulingana na katiba ya
Now, Honorable Nasil, I am aware that you actually had a legislative proposal on this specific area, but the one of government had to take precedent. I will just give you additional 3 minutes, only because of that you actually had a...
Bwana Spika, maneno yako ni kuntu. Bwana Spika, nilileta sheria hii, nilitengeza sheria hii kwa sababu tulikuwa tumeyaona yale ambayo kwamba yaliyoko, ya kwa hakuna hisabu zinazowekwa katika mambo ya wakfu. Tuliona yale yaliyoko, ya kwa ni mikakati gani ya watakaochaguliwa katika makomishna. Na nilipoileta sheria ile, Bwana Spika, ikawa serikali kupitia kwa aliyekuwa mkuu wa wengi katika bunge, Bwana Mheshimiwa Aden Duale, nikaombwa ya kuwa itakuwa ni bora kwa vile kuna sheria tayari imeweza tusishindane, nikakubali yangu iweze kuwa nyuma. Na mimi nakubaliana na nafurahi vinara wote walioko katika bunge. Hata juzi tulikuwa tuko Mombasa tukiwa tunafanya sherehe fulani ya Idi pamoja na kiongozi wa walio wengi, na akaweka ahadi ya kwa hii sheria atahakikisha ya kwa iwe katika kipaumbele, na nashukuru. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, ni kuwasihi tu wenzangu, kuwasihi ya kwa tuiangalie hii sheria kwa minajili ya katiba inavyokubali, tuiangalie hii sheria kwa minajili ya vizazi vinavyokuja waweze kufaidi kwa sababu ya yale ambao kwamba vizazi vilopita waliojaribu kuweza kuyafanya. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Honorable Wanyonyi, but what is out of order, Honorable Nyoro?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I lies on a slightly different matter because, as you know, Mr. Speaker, I've just come back to Kenya from Kampala, Uganda. And on our way to Uganda yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we were met with very unprofessional officials, Mr. Speaker, from immigration, where they humiliated our Deputy President and purported to deny us members of this House, Mr. Speaker, some kind of clearance. And Mr. Speaker, upon inquiring from this House...
Order, Honorable. You know, I can't get what is out of order on about Didi Nyoro, really. What is out of order? Because the business in the house is clear. What
Mr. Speaker, you know, with this House, we have the privilege of raising such issues, Mr. Speaker, which are of national importance, because, Mr. Speaker, I don't think as a country that we should just watch as we see overzealous government officials humiliating a person in the stature of the Deputy President of this nation. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, is that I was having a private travel to Kampala, Uganda. And, Mr. Speaker, I was told ostensibly that I needed some clearance from some quota, Mr. Speaker, which is against the law and against all regulations.
Order, Honorable Didi Nyoro. You know, Honorable Didi Nyoro, it is just that you came at the latter part of this sitting this afternoon. If you are actually here earlier, you would have known that actually this issue was raised. And actually the Speaker gave direction. So, Honorable Didi Nyoro, let us not go that path. At least, let us remain within the direction given earlier by the Speaker. So then we keep the course, Honorable Didi Nyoro. But if you check, I'm sure you will check and see what actually the direction the Speaker gave on that particular matter. So I would not, what is out of order, Honorable Miri Odhiambo?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with utmost due respect to the bench, I have noted with concern a growing practice, Mr. Speaker, that there are members who are given too much leeway to be completely out of order. And even earlier on, Mr. Speaker, there are members who came in this House, including the Honorable Member speaking, adorning party colors. I have been here 3 terms. I have never seen such abhorrent behavior, Mr. Speaker. This is a National Assembly. And as much as we want to have them as very able competitors, there are issues that we agree can even raise those issues procedurally before this House. But we cannot give a leeway that when a matter has been raised and dealt with the Speaker, and I'm sure he was listening, and we are giving him so much leeway to interrupt, we are dealing with serious issues of the WAF Commission. Mr. Speaker, I am concerned about the leeway that we are giving some members or some parties in this House. I am very concerned. And if we continue, I will come here also adorning orange and I will dance on the floor. Because we can also be crazy. So if you want to go that way, we will go.
Honorable Wanyonyi, you have the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I've been sitting here listening, and I want to take this opportunity to make my remarks. And I think we need some clarifications, which I think has been clarified. And therefore, I want to agree with the House that, first of all, we have had this ward law that has been there since 1951. Some of us were not even there. And I think the purpose for it being coming before this House is for us to be able to rectify and make it sure that it's not necessarily going to Islamic. And I think that's been made very clear that this is not necessarily Islamic, although of course we had it moved by the Islamic community. The poor, the needy, and the families that are remaining behind. We've had cases where actually because of what we've had recently, we have corrupt people. And therefore one question is that, as somebody mentioned, I think Millie asked that, we have to know, and I think the chair, like a committee, should be able to have actually looked at this before we debated. One, how are these trustees actually appointed? You can't just pick some people and because Islamic or whatever, or because they come from Mombasa or some other place. Islamic now today is all over the country. In my own constituency, my county, we have mosques and everybody else. You know, people are free to join Islamic, Christianity, what have you. I think, Speaker, the mistake that we made this particular bill is that the CHELAC did not actually look at it, to remove some of the things that have been raised so that this should not be looked at as if it is actually Islamic. It should, well, the idea is good, that must have accountability, and we should have accountability in whatever we are doing, but we needed to have this reviewed by the committee concerned. So when it comes as it comes here, we're now talking as a national issue, other than looking at it as an issue that concerns only Islamic religion. Again, the question is, and we'll be raising that question in the third reading of this bill, is it, if we pass this particular commission, we are going to appoint a commission, is it going to be for the money now, if the money is, or properties are donated, of somebody's dead or something, is it going to benefit only Islamic community or Christianity or whatever the neighborhood? Like somebody said, within his own community, we have people who live with us who are Muslims. Is it going to be the same thing? So I think, to me, and it was raised by Honorable Chris, it will appear to us that it was a bit premature for this bill to come to us now. And you can see, by the time now we come to third reading, it will be something else. So the bit of correction, the Speaker, that we should have actually looked at it, removed some of the items that actually are now raising issues. Even the last speaker also mentioned the same thing. So I'm really torn in between Christianity and whatever, and it's not very good because the idea is good, but when it comes to now some issues that are being raised in this House, Mr. Speaker, I think there's much more than we can answer. And therefore, I do not want to take this opportunity to say I support, or I want to wait for the third reading before I take my position.
Honorable Duare Dahil.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to talk on this bill. First of all, I want to thank the person who, Honorable Duale, for coming up with the Waqf bill. And I want to thank all the members who have actually spoken on the bill before I am speaking now. First of all, I think that the Waqf bill is an endowment fund, which is actually, the concept is basically Islamic, but it is always good. It is to help the weaker people in the society, for those who have more to give out, and for those who have good heart to also contribute to the welfare of the common people. And I think that in line with the constitution of this country, the bill is within the context of our laws, and it will contribute to the welfare of the citizens of this country. And I think that for me, as a Kenyan, the Muslim community who actually profess the Islamic faith are quite many in this country, in many parts of the country, and as members have said, they are everywhere in the country. And it's a concept which will also, I personally have no problem if it contributes to the welfare of Kenyans, whatever it is. It is also good to have it within, so that the law which will come out of this will be within the laws of Kenya, so that those funds can be managed in line with the laws of this country and regulations of this country. With those few remarks, I support the bill. Thank you so much.
Honorable Adagala, member for Vihiga.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to also give my contribution towards this noble bill. Mr. Speaker, I think it has been moved by Honorable Duale, and I think I can support it with the amendments that Honorable Millie Odhiambo is talking about, Gesa. Let us not have differences between Muslims and Christians when it comes to such kind of bill, because this is a National Assembly that is dealing with bills concerning all Kenyans. And I would wish to say this, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think this bill is the right one. It has to be passed, because we have seen several places whereby money has been contributed. I've seen there was a complaint in a county somewhere where money came to a particular mosque and it was embezzled. So when laws are put in place, it can assist. And if commissioners are appointed, it can assist in running of such kind of issues, Mr. Speaker, sir. Like in my county in Vihiga, I have Muslims faithfuls who are my voters, and I want to voice this clearly to them that we are in total support of this bill. I think the Legal and Justice Committee should finish up a few areas that needs to be worked on so that this bill can be passed, because we are having several needy cases that needs assistance. As much as a member here said that Christians also receive, is it called offerings, sadaka, fungu la kumi and them, but actually it's high time the country we must put up laws that can manage, that can make these funds to be managed well so that they can benefit the few disadvantaged members of the community. Like right now, we have time for fees and so forth. You'll hardly find CDF, NGAF, and other funds being enough. You'll find even right now, most of the members are stressed on how to cater for fees requirements in the constituencies and counties. So once such organizations are recognized and the Waqf bill is passed for the Muslims to see how they can get in other funds to assist, this one can be of a great assistance to our country and to our people. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a noble cause. We have to support it so that it can benefit our people, both and especially during these hard times of COVID. The economy is down, people are having it rough. Kenyans are surviving on, I think, a 0.something of a dollar, which is so terrible. So I wish to say this, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think this bill, I'll support it. The Waqf bill should pass urgently. I would wish to I would wish if the Legal and Justice Committee can do their work urgently so that we pass this bill before this parliament is dissolved, for it to be in operation and assist our people. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I wish to support and thank you for giving me this opportunity to give my voice on this noble cause. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ali Adman.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kupata fursa hii kuweza kuchangia mswada huu wa wakfu. Mheshimiwa Spika, wengi wamezungumza swala zima hili la wakfu, na mimi ningependa kuelezea kwamba ni vyema tufahamu kwanza maana ya wakfu ni nini, ndiposa tutapata yale maelezo kamili, ingawaje Mheshimiwa Duale ameweza kutuelezea. Mheshimiwa Spika, wakfu imekuwako katika nchi hii na imekuwa ikitambulika na nchi hii, na ni mwongozo umekuwa ukitembea ama ukiendelezwa na Waislamu. Lakini hivi sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, mswada huu umefika hapa bungeni kwa marekebisho zaidi ni dalili kuonyesha kwamba umechukua mkondo wa kisheria ya nchi hii inavyotakikana. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ni vyema vile vile tufahamu ya kwamba utaratibu na mwongozo ambao unaotakikana hususan katika swala zima hili, tukiwa kama Waislamu, tukiwa kama Wakenya, tunafahamu kwamba Uislamu una mwongozo wake na nchi una mwongozo wake katika masala ya dini. Ndiposa hata katika katiba imeelezea waziwazi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwamba kuna uhuru wa kuabudu katika madini. Kwa hivyo nashukuru pakubwa kwamba nchi hii imeweza kutambua dini zote na mwongozo wao unavyoendeshwa katika dini hizi. Mheshimiwa Spika, hapo awali kumekuwa na wakfu, lakini kwa masikitiko makubwa mwongozo wa wakfu umekuwa ukiendeshwa kwa namna ambavyo hauridhishi ama hauwaridhishi Waislamu. Ndiposa utaratibu huu umeletwa hapa bungeni kupitia kisheria kikamilifu, na tunaamini ya kwamba ni utaratibu utaweza kuwa na mwelekeo ama mwongozo kamilifu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hili ni jambo muhimu sana katika jamii. Mara nyingi tunaona ya kwamba watu wanakuwa na matatizo katika upande wa elimu, watu wanapokuwa na matatizo katika upande wa afya, watu wanakuwa matatizo katika upande wa kijamii. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini ikiwa jamii haina muongozo katika kusaidiana katika haya, ndiposa utapata kwamba huyu yuko huku yatafuta msaada, yule yuko kule yatafuta msaada. Naamini pakubwa malengo ya huu mswada bill ya wakfu, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kule kwamba wale ambao wameelezewa kwamba wako na mali ya kutosha, wako na rasilimali za kutosha, wanaweza kuzitoa rasilimali hizi kupitia kwa mission hii, na rasilimali hizi, Mheshimiwa Spika, zinaweza kusaidia kuendeleza jamii kwa masala ya elimu, kwa masala ya ugonjwa, kwa masala na mingineo ya kijamii. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu ni matatizo ambayo tuko nayo, Mheshimiwa Spika, nafikiri unayaona katika jamii, na kule kwamba hatuna mwongozo, Mheshimiwa Spika, na ni jambo ambalo liko katika dini ya Kiislamu na dini zote. Utapata kwamba watu wakienda makanisani, Mheshimiwa Spika, wanatoa sadaka wakiamini pakubwa sadaka ile wanaoitoa itakwenda kujiendeleza katika mambo ambayo kesho atayaona na ataweza kufurahia nao, na malengo makubwa ni kwamba apate yale ujira ya kile alichokitoa. Na hususan katika dini ya Kiislamu nao, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba hiki ni kitu unachokitoa ambacho kama kilivyoelezewa, Mheshimiwa Spika, kitakuja kukufaa kesho mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu, Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati umeondoka dunia hii. Kwa sababu ulichonacho katika ulimwengu huu, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba utakiacha hapa na utaenda mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu ukiwa umeacha kila kitu. Sasa njia pekee ya hizi vitu ambavyo utakuwa nazo, ambao ni mali yako katika dunia hii, ama chochote kile ambacho uko nacho, unapokiacha katika wakfu, ni ina maana kwamba hata kesho ukiondoka hapa duniani, kitu kile kinaendelea kukusaidia katika wema wako ambao utakupata mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Mheshimiwa Spika, sasa utapata kwamba hii ni hali ya kwamba si lazima kwa Muislamu ama si lazima kwa mtu yoyote ambaye anapasa atoe hii sadaka ama hii wakfu. Ni hiari yako, Mheshimiwa Spika, na watu wafahamu ya kwamba vile vile ni kwamba kitakachopatikana katika wakfu hakitotoka katika public money, si pesa za serikali zitaenda kwa wakfu. Ni kitu ama ni pesa zinatoka kwa mtu binafsi ambaye anapeana willingly kwa hiari yake, kwa sababu kutarajia malipo ama riwadi kwa Mwenyezi Mungu kesho mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Na haya kama ninavyosema, Mheshimiwa Spika, yanafanyika kwa ndugu zetu wa Kikristo na yanafanyika kwa Waislamu. Lakini hapa katika mswada huu, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba utaratibu ulioko katika mwongozo huu ni kwamba umekuwako hapo awali, lakini haukukuwa na natija yoyote katika Uislamu. Yameelezewa matatizo, ni kwamba kuna baadhi ya vitu ambavyo vimetolewa kama wakfu, lakini hivi sasa vinatumiwa kwa namna ambavyo sivyo. Mheshimiwa Mishi ametoa mfano, kuna rasilimali ambazo ziko pale Mombasa zinatumiwa kwa njia ambazo sizo. Kwa hivyo kutokana na hali hii, ilikuwa tume hii ya wakfu haiwezi kufanya lolote isipokuwa ni kupitia bunge hili na kuweza kuweka marekebisho haya kwa usaidizi wa wabunge ili kuweza kurekebisha na kuweza kuendesha utaratibu huu kwa namna zake. Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, kama nilivyosema, tunao wengi ambao wako tayari kuyafanya haya, kuweka fedha zao kwa wakfu, kuweka rasilimali zao kwa wakfu ili zisaidie jamii. Lakini kule kwamba hakukuwa na mwongozo kikamilifu, hakukuwa na utaratibu kikamilifu, hakukuwa na sheria ya kisawasawa, ndiposa watu wengi walikosa imani ya kuweza kufanya jambo kama hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini naamini pakubwa ya kwamba tutakapopitisha mswada huu, basi mwongozo kama huu utaweza kupatikana, na zile hali za jamii kuwa na taharuki ya kwamba pengine wanapopatikana matatizo ya kusoma, ya ugonjwa, ya kujiendeleza na mambo, nafikiri haya yatakuwa ni mambo yameweza kuepukana na ndugu zetu hawa katika jamii. Mheshimiwa Spika, lifahamike ya kwamba katika masala haya ya kidini sote ni ndugu. Utapata kwamba Muislamu yuachangia katika kanisa na Mkristo yuachangia vile vile katika misikiti. Kwa hivyo lisilete tafaruki eti kwa kuwa labda pengine kuna mwongozo fulani umepangiwa, Waislamu wana malengo yao. La, kwa sababu utaratibu huu wale wahusika ndio watakuwa nao, lakini ninavyofahamu mimi, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba hata Waislamu leo wakiona ndugu zao Wakristo wako na matatizo, wako tayari kuwasaidia. Lakini ifahamike tu katika muongozo wa dini ya Kiislamu kuna mambo mengine yana muongozo yake, na ifahamike kwamba pesa zozote zitakazokuwa katika wakfu ama rasilimali zitakazokuwa katika wakfu ni rasilimali zitakazochangiwa na watu kwa hiari yao, si pesa, si fedha za kiserikali ambazo zitawekezwa pale eti pengine zisaidie watu Waislamu ama wengineo, bali ni utaratibu wa kidini ambao umewekwa kwamba unapokuwa na chochote, either fedha ama rasilimali, unaweka katika wakfu ili ikusaidie wewe kesho mbele za Mwenyezi Mungu, na ile kitu ulichoweka ndicho kitaweza, kikiwa well managed, kikiangaliwa vyema, ndipo pale kitaweza kuonekana na tija yake kusaidia watu katika jamii. Kwa haya machache, Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kuunga mkono na ningependa ndugu zetu watufahamu swala hili ni swala ambalo halina utata baina ya dini. Kwa haya machache, asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill. Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I would like to articulated by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo, but Honorable Speaker, much more so because as I look at the bill, it is clear from the principal object of the bill that the goal was for the establishment of the WAF Commission, the administration of property, and indeed, Honorable Speaker, to repeal the WAF Commission Act, Cap 109 of the laws of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, looking through the bill and also listening to the debate, it is clear that paramount was the desire or the concern to enhance accountability, to indeed look at the management of the funds thereof in a manner that would allow accountability, that would indeed promote fairness, and would be seen to be used in a way that is reaching all the intended beneficiaries or recipients. Honorable Speaker, in a way, it is a good thing that as members of Parliament, we have the role, Honorable Speaker, to scrutinize and to reflect on the manner in which law is presented, because, Honorable Speaker, whereas I'm not a lawyer, my experience to date has been that the devil is usually in the detail. And Honorable Speaker, when we get to go through a bill and when we seek to perform our role of legislation, it is indeed important, as we are doing today, to take time, Honorable Speaker, to reflect and to see indeed areas that might, in terms of the way that the law then is presented, be in contravention, Honorable Speaker, of Constitution, or indeed to evoke, Honorable Speaker, sentiments that would seem to define or encourage discrimination, or in a manner of speaking, to label the distinguished citizens. Honorable Speaker, therefore, as I support this bill, I am, Honorable Speaker, having listened even to the manner in which the Honorable Adan Duale, Honorable Speaker, had moved the bill, and Honorable Speaker, as I listened to the Honorable Sankok, and he indeed presented the bill as a platform to champion and indeed, so to speak, evangelize and try not only to compare one, if you like, faith, Honorable Speaker, with the other, but to present, Honorable Speaker, as we listen to citizens of our country, all of whom, Honorable Speaker, before the Constitution, and indeed in terms of how we would like to organize ourselves, are not only deemed to be equal, but indeed encouraged to treat one another in that manner. It is of great concern to me, Honorable Speaker, that we would, as we are looking at a bill that is now a property of the National Assembly, a bill that we are talking about from the perspective of looking at laws that would help us in Kenya look towards way of ensuring that we pull together and that we have, Honorable Speaker, very clear indications, frameworks, regulations that would ensure that we are able to administer in all fairness what is required, but much more so, Honorable Speaker, that would be in keeping with the Constitution. It is a concern to me, Honorable Speaker, that we would then seem on the floor of the House to appear to be not only championing, if you like, Honorable Speaker, and unfairly so, because as has been indicated, this is no longer a bill for a particular faith, but would appear to be championing one faith or one belief as opposed to the other. Allow me, Honorable Speaker, to indicate that integrity is a cornerstone, Honorable Speaker, of our Constitution, an area in which we continue to grapple. And in my understanding, as I support this bill, I can see that it is seeking to ensure that the WAF Commission would be in a position to ensure that there is integrity. Honorable Speaker, good governance is another area where we continue as a country to seek to aspire towards, and it is in this regard, Honorable Speaker, that I support the bill. But Honorable Speaker, I think it is important as I conclude and look forward indeed to the amendments and indeed the way that we would seek to ensure that the bill, with the object as spelled out, is crafted, Honorable Speaker, in a way that will not only be seen to be in keeping with all the constitutional requirements, but one that enhances a sense, Honorable Speaker, of togetherness, of inclusion, of acceptance of all Kenyans, irrespective of their faith. I hope, Honorable Speaker, that it does not skip the attention of any of us, regardless of our faith, that if we look at all religion, all beliefs, ideas to be practicing our faith, we wouldn't even need, Honorable Speaker, to revert to the law. As a matter of fact, as a Christian, Honorable Speaker, I do know that when we look at the book, we will see that there is a sense in which even as we resort to law, we do so because to a large extent we might tend to be working on our faith in spirit, but sometimes hardly so, and not so much in truth. So when we look at the law, Honorable Speaker, I would urge all of us to desist from going back to religion and indeed talking about the faith and the practices, because the very need The very fact that we have this bill before us is a demonstration, Honorable Speaker, that as the Holy Book, Romans says, all have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. And regardless of what faith we demonstrate, regardless of how we seek, Honorable Speaker, to be proud of our faith, it is my sincere belief, and it is my opinion, that as we look at this bill, Honorable Speaker, we must look at it from the perspective that is spelled out in the object, that we would like to ensure that the WAF Commission would enhance accountability, would promote fairness, would indeed not only give a very clear indication of how funds will be received, will be processed, but Honorable Speaker, will also specify that as we define the law, we are not excluding any categories of Kenyans, especially on grounds of their faith. With this, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you, as I want to remind all of us that in the balance of conflict resolution and peace building, there is always very clear early warning signs. Honorable Speaker, and research and practice all over the world, including different countries in Kenya, different countries in Africa, and our country, Kenya, really, Honorable Speaker, would expect that we would be able to see early warning signs. And Honorable Speaker, part of the dialogue, part of the exchange, the manner in which this was presented here is an early warning sign of getting us as Kenyans to disagree on religious grounds, but also, Honorable Speaker, to remember that we are on the verge of elections, and we want to be sure and to be careful that we do not ignore the early warning signs, and we seek to manage conflict instead of waiting after everything has blown up to try to resolve. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Once again, I support subject to amendments. Thank you.
Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I do appreciate that I am able to contribute to this very, very important bill. This is an important bill to our society, to our Kenyan society, to the people that actually value the issue of supporting social capital. It is an important bill to say that this is going to safeguard and put regulations that are important in managing. But I really want to say this, Mr. Speaker, that this House needs to know that Waqf was started around 670 AD. That's about 1,400 years ago, or even I would rather say 1,500 years ago. That's 1,500 years ago. It is important that Waqf has been a contributor to societal building, to engagement of societies to reach for what they want to reach in their livelihoods. If I can take a very simple example, at around 690 AD, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, the first Caliph of Islam, or the Khulafa, is the one who has contributed in paying a waqf of wells so that the young Muslim society at that particular time can be able to benefit from those wells because of Saudi Arabia being in the desert, a place where water was scarce. Waqf was contributed around that period of time. It has evolved eventually. It continued. It has contributed to the values that society can share, the haves and the have-nots. This is also something that we can even say that other religions have been doing similarly, but in their own ways. You know, the alms are paid, sadaqah are paid by every other religion. Now, there are two types of, waqfs, or contributors to waqfs. One of it is the obligatory alms, which is called the zakah, that I am supposed to pay from my wealth 2.5% annually. That is essential wealth for the poor, for the marginalized, for societies that do not have the capacity to be able to fend for themselves. And therefore, it was more of a contributory to their support, guaranteeing that everyone that has some wealth, some sort of wealth, or some sort of income that can reach a threshold, a particular threshold, that they can contribute 2.5% of their wealth every year, year in, year out, to those that are poor and those that do not have. And therefore, it was about caring. Sharing is caring. And therefore, that is to care for those that were under. There was also the other contributor to waqf, sadaqah. Sadaqah is payable every minute of your time. Now that M-Pesa is there, I can pay sadaqah every minute. I can send to anybody in any corner of this country. That is an important contributor to the waqf. And waqf is more or less, a societal kind of venture that they contribute to be able to look after those that are vulnerable, the orphans and the vulnerable members of, and the other vulnerable members of the society, the elderly, the very poor. These are the people who benefit from that. Now, I realize that Kenya, is a country that Kenyans are people that share what they receive and what they get during their days and toils. And therefore, making sure that waqf is actually pegged in our laws will streamline a number of regulations. In the beginning, I thought about it. I said, well, if we bring waqf into this issue of the country and the laws and all that, there will be challenges for those who might be manning some of these regulations in this country, may not really understand. The ignorance that we have seen with the new CJ claiming that, women can become qadis. It is unfortunate that they don't understand the most important fundamentals of our society, or the fundamental things in our society is about looking at the holy books and the orders and the laws that were there centuries in, centuries out. And therefore, what it tells us is that, will it also fall into the same cracks within the law to look at the way it is managed, not managed through the holy scripts, not managed through the right scripts that has begun this in 670 AD? Will it be counterproductive to the way people have been working throughout in handling this? We have inherited the waqf from our forefathers. We have carried it on. I have been a contributor to that. I have a center of excellence, girls' excellence, and orphanage that has got over 120 girls. It is done through waqf. It is supported through the waqf. And these are orphans and vulnerable girls that are supported, educated. These are children that do not have fathers and mothers. And through my help, that is how we were contributing in my constituency to those girls. Now, will these regulations be looked into a proper way that is going to support the waqf process that has been supported over the centuries that we have passed? That is one aspect. The other important thing is, it becomes important that we put this into regulations and law. And what this bill will do is that it will add contemporary management of the waqf. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that contemporary management in the process that as days move on, the world changes. And as it changes, then it means ancient means of working does change. And therefore, contemporary means of management of the waqf through a bill as such would be able to support process that is acceptable to all societies. And therefore, particularly to the societies that actually where waqf is pegged in their religion. And that is through the zakat, which is a compulsory payment of 2.5%. Now, societal cohesion has always been there. But it was wobbling. It was wobbling in the sense that things were not done through proper channels, through well-known and well-versed process. And therefore, this bill will support that process in place through the laws of this country. It is important also for us to understand that other communities can join our process. It may be taken over by any other person that comes from another different religion to be able to have that compulsion of 2.5% from your wealth to contribute to a particular waqf, be either, within your own society, within your own religion or any other, process that you profess. And therefore, that is very important. I need not to hold this house further because I want to say that I cannot, support less this important bill. I see that it is going to be a contributor to better society, to better management of our funds and monies. But I really want to say that any other individual who does not understand the actual meaning and importance of this needs to open up the books, the laws that established Waqf in the 670 AD, and carry on from there on. And therefore, we need not to see people who are, ignorant about it to come and tell us how things can be done. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think that should suffice for me to support this bill. Thank you.
Honorable Nikal, member for Seme.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I arise to support this Waqf bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill is important. It actually provides a framework for managing this endowment that are given for charity. And I think in every society, it is important that charity that is given by other people is properly managed. And if it's done in line with Islamic religion, I see nothing wrong with that. Because there are many other laws that we have that actually take into consideration our religions. Even if you take the Marriage Act, it actually looks at the traditional practices, all the laws, and that is acceptable so that the law accommodates all of us. Even if you look at insurance, there is takaful that is also Islamic and is something legal and is going on. There is Islamic banking. Again, these are things that are in the law, and so I see no problem at all with that, so long as every aspect is looked at. Obviously, we'll have to see how it relates with other laws that are related, like the Unclaimed Property Act that we have, public trustees laws that we have. So in my view, it just fits in all our legal framework. And this, as we have learned, actually existed many years ago, although at that time it actually provided for what was then perceived as a smaller community in a restricted area. Now that has expanded, and therefore we have to expand the law as well. It's also the structures then, the law then that created the commission in 1948 are now not relevant, so it is better to look at it. And Muslim leaders actually saw this as necessary and even put a petition to the government that resulted into this bill. And I think that's something, in my view, that is commendable of entering our practices into law. And this bill actually provides a way that makes people who want to give the waqifs, as they were said, comfortable that the resources that they give will be used as they wanted. It also provides the structures of how these resources will be managed. The commission, how it is set up, although we have asked how the members are identified, but that's something we can look at in the third reading of the bill at the Committee of the Whole House. And this bill also provides how those finances are managed, the commission itself manages, and how the works themselves are registered. I find that structure is definitely necessary for us. The bill also provides on how inquiries can be made in circumstances that these contributions, the work, has not been used properly, and how they can be disposed of. And it's also important that they actually look at unclaimed assets, and that's why I was asking, how will it link, how will it relate with the other laws that deal with that? But most important to me, Mr. Speaker, you find that the bill provides that these resources and these commissions will actually be audited by the public through the Public Audit Act, which that actually brings them into the law as much as it should be. So, Mr. Speaker, in my view, this is a law we should support so that people who get help receive the help with the monies and the resources that are given by other people without losses that will occur if we do not have such a structure. As to whether it will be restricted to Muslims, I think that's some things other members have contributed to. We can look at the law and say that as much as based on Islamic laws, even Islam itself, members have said here, provides that all people should be supported if they need help and support. And so, Mr. Speaker, I support this, and we look at the appropriate amendments when we come to the Committee of the Whole House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do support.
Let's have Honorable Bogomenza.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this important bill. Mr. Speaker, I wish to make it very clear from the onset that I support this bill because it's timely. And for information purposes to my honorable colleagues, we already have a Waqf Commission of Kenya that is already operating and existing in this country, but it is mostly felt in Coast Province. But the current laws that we have that are managing the Waqf Commission of Kenya, they are pre-colonial. These are the laws that were enacted in 1948. And of course, they are not in line with our constitution. The current laws, Mr. Speaker, they are very discriminatory because they only consider Muslims to be Arabs. But as we know today, Mr. Speaker, this country has more than 43 tribes, and we have Muslims from all these tribes that are existing in this country. So what the new bill that has been proposed by Honorable Duale is actually coming in to address those kind of issues whereby a Muslim can be identified as a person who prophesizes Islam. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the current laws, whereby we have the commission that is already operating in this country, but we do not know how these commissioners are selected, how these commissioners, what are their qualifications, what is the constitution of the commission itself, because they were being governed by the laws that were enacted in those many years. But the laws that we are currently being proposed, Mr. Speaker, they are coming in to address so many issues. First, it's coming to address the issue of transparency. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, the Waqf, there are two types of Waqf, Mr. Speaker. We have one which we call private Waqf, and we have one which we call public Waqf. The private Waqf is whereby a member contributes to the Waqf his assets to help his own family. And you have what we call a public Waqf, whereby whatever you contribute to the Waqf comes in to help the public at large. So, Mr. Speaker, I agree with my colleagues whereby when we come to the third reading during the Committee of the Whole House, we will bring in amendments because we need to address the issue of private and public Waqf. Because if we leave it open like this, And yet we know that these two types of waqfs are already being practiced in the country. There will be a gap there. And there is need to make sure that we are in line with whatever we do in this Waqf Commission of Kenya. So when we get to the third reading of this bill, during the Committee of the Whole House, I will also bring my own amendments to make sure that we align the private Waqf and the public Waqf, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today we have so many assets that belong to the Muslim community that have never been claimed. And yet, we have a Waqf Commission of Kenya which do not have the powers and means of claiming those assets to make sure that they support and propagate the welfare of the Muslim and the less fortunate ones in the society, Mr. Speaker. And this has been brought about because of lack of faith and lack of confidence in the Waqf Commission that exists at the moment, because of those gaps that I've just mentioned, that we do not know how this commission is selected, we do not know how they manage the fund, we do not know how much funds or how much money do they raise in a year, because there is no audit, there is no accountability, there is no transparency. So whatever Honorable Duale has done is not something new, is not a new bill. It is an amendment of what we have already in the country. And this should not be a reason, Mr. Speaker, to make us fight the Muslims and Christians. We have coexisted in this country. And today, we have Muslims from the Luos, we have Muslims from the Turukanas, we have the Muslim from the coast, we have the Muslim from all over the country. So we are one family. So whatever the bill is trying to do is to bring order, to bring sanity, to bring accountability, so that whatever monies or funds that are contributed by the Muslim people or even any other person can be able to be accounted for, and it can be able to be seen to do what is required to do, Mr. Speaker. The new bill, Mr. Speaker, will also bring in and to strengthen our institutions, because the new bill is proposing to have a Director General who will be responsible, who will be the CEO of the Waqf Commission of Kenya, of the Waqf Commission. Because as we speak today, we have what we call a Secretary General who is in charge of the Waqf Commission of Kenya. So the new bill is actually proposing the best ways to govern and manage the Waqf. And because we are looking at billions of shillings that are channeled through the Waqf Commission of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, because I have a practical experience in my own constituency whereby there's so much land that was contributed by their owners to the Waqf Commission of Kenya to support the welfare of the less fortunate people in the society. But Mr. Speaker, you will be surprised, a land worth maybe 300 million has been leased in a way that nobody knows for 12,000 shillings a year. And you can imagine the kind of revenue that is being realized out of that land. But at the end of the day, we do not know how these funds are channeled, where these funds go. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I wish to fully support this bill, and I wish my colleagues to understand that we are not fighting any religion in this matter, but what we're trying to do is just to bring sanity in the laws that we have and to be in the Constitution 2010. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I fully support it.
Shall we have Honorable Amin Kasim?
Honorable Speaker, I stand to support this Waqf bill, which has been initiated through the House. Honorable Speaker, Waqf is extremely a very usable endowment fund, which has been used over the years in a number of Islamic countries. It has been useful in the sense that it is a collection, willing collection and individual contributions of individual members to this endowment fund. It has certain set of criteria of where it's going to be used and how it's going to be used. Currently, these payments in terms of Waqf is ordinarily done either individually or publicly it's done. But there's no formal structure, formal institution that is able to formalize and use and create criteria for its usage, criteria for its collection, criteria so that it can be followed by each and every individual contributor of this endowment fund. Honorable Speaker, this endowment fund is a willing contribution. It is intended to support the less fortunate individuals in our society. Currently, there's no formal way of doing it. The country has its specific contribution through the exchequer. The exchequer has got its way of dispersing money to its nationals. But endowment fund, there's no specific way that it is getting money from the exchequer. This is there to bridge the gap that exists for the less unfortunate, less able members of our society, so that we can be able to meet their obligations and meet their needs. So basically, this endowment fund is going to meet and support the less fortunate individuals. Some of these areas that it can be able to support are orphanages. Orphanages, you know it very well. There could be certain contribution from the government, but there's no specific funding which go for specific orphanages and the children which are equally disadvantaged. It is an Islamic responsibility for us to support particular, and there are specific surahs of the Quran which says the orphans should be supported, but there's no specific fund. We feel that this institution, this endowment fund will be able to cater for the less fortunate, the orphans, the widows, which ordinarily is not able to get the support, exchequer support to this fund. So basically, this fund is going to support other institutions. Currently, if you can see it, even in the church organizations, there's a 10% contribution, willing contribution to various churches that exist in this country. There is even the mosque. Every mosque has certain collections which are done on a daily basis, but those are not regulated. The churches' collections are not regulated. The mosque fundings are not properly regulated. But this endowment fund, the creation of this bill and the creation of this endowment institution is going to regulate. It's going to regulate all collections, and it's going to give specific criteria on how it's going to be dispersed, who is going to be dispersed to, who is eligible. It is going to create sanity in the way this is going to be dispersed. Also, for those specific contributors who are making this contribution, they will feel that their money and their collections are properly organized and properly dispersed in a specific criteria. And they will be more willing to contribute further into this endowment fund. So the creation of the bill is going to create a clean environment, a supportive environment, which can be able to increase the collection centers. It will provide certain criteria of how it's going to be used. But more critical to this institution is who is going to man this commission. This commission, the people who are going to man, are not going to be ordinary members of this society. I should be very pious. People who are really concerned, people who will be accountable, who will be able to do this funding and its disbursement in a very transparent manner. So how we are going to craft this bill and how we are going to operationalize the bill, it could be quite significant on how it's going to be rolled, how it's going to be accepted by each and every individual contributor of this society. So clearly, as we continue further into the third reading, and we'll be able to make an amendment so that this Waqf fund is not only associated with a specific religion or with a specific group of the society, but it's going to provide certain criteria on how it's going to be used, how it's going to be structured, how it is going to be dispersed, so that it's an acceptable funding. Also, the government can be able to follow. Currently, there could be some other funding which comes in a very dubious way. Money that comes through laundering, money that comes in a very other unrecognized means of it. So basically, this one is going to see that the government can also oversee the expenditure of this money, how much it is, how much impact it has, so it has going to have a proper structure for it. So basically, I find this endowment fund as the best thing that can happen to Kenyans, because we are going to support the less fortunate, we are going to support institutions that are currently housing very disabled, very affected members of society, particularly the widows, the orphans, the institutions that are giving education. It's also going to support education. Education is the greatest thing, it's an equalizer. So the fact that this funding can also be used to expand the funding for education institutions, particularly Islamic institutions, will be able to provide certain support towards the end in the future. So I believe This is a Waqf bill, a bill that has come and is very timely, and the fact that we are trying to deliberate on it in this House is a great thing that this House can be able to do. So I support fully the creation of the disbursement fund, and I fully support its creation. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Finally, we have Honorable Nyenze, and then we'll go back to Honorable TJ Kajwang to bring back the earlier prayer on this bill. Honorable Nyenze.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me say that from the onset that I've learned a lot about the Waqf, and it's a very noble idea, and it's a very good bill. But I also note that actually, if we practiced our faith and followed according to the faith, then and be led as the good books say, then would not need many of these rules. But I've also noted that the Waqf is actually trying to regulate, is actually trying to control, and also to bring sanity to these funds which have been collected for a long time. And it's a very good practice to actually give to the poor. So I've noted that the bill is trying to bring up a framework for charity. And from this bill, we will also have commissioners who will be registered as per the bill, and that this bill is going to help in now, even succession will be done after one has contributed. But Mr. Speaker, my concern is whether this bill might open a Pandora box, whereby other faiths may also feel that they also have their own constitution, which should also be brought to Parliament. But if it happens and brings sanity, why not? Because even other faiths also contribute towards the poor. They contribute also through their constitution, through their policies. They contribute towards education, towards construction of God's houses, and so many other contributions. But if this bill goes through, then other faiths can also learn from it, and if possible, even bring their own constitution, their own policies, so that they can also practice some sanity and control in their funds. When this bill goes through, it's important to actually differentiate whether the funds will go to individuals or to families or to the public. And if the funds go to public and it's a bill which has gone through Parliament, then maybe it will also open up for other people who are not Muslims as such to also benefit. And in doing so, the government can also be putting funds into this good arrangement. So, Mr. Speaker, I note that it's a good bill which is trying to bring sanity, to regulate the funds which have been contributed towards the poor by people sacrificing even what they should have enjoyed to give to the poor. And these funds should not be embezzled. These funds should be used for the purposes which were intended for. So it's important to have a bill which will indicate who will receive the funds and how the funds will be processed, who will be allocated these funds, and to avoid corruption, and also if it's in family matters, to show how succession will be done, and this will bring sanity into these funds. And going forward, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, it's good for also the other faiths to learn from this and also see how their constitutions and policies, as far as funds are concerned, can be controlled in different places. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I support with the proposed amendments. Thank you.
Before we get to Honorable TJ Kajwang, looks like Honorable Ibrahim Sahal wants to weigh into this.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this important bill. Mr. Speaker, the bill seeks to repeal Waqf Commissioners Act Cap 109 of the law of Kenya to establish Waqf Commission and the compensation, appointments, functions, and remuneration of members of the Commission. The bill also seeks to strengthen management of Waqf through a transparent and proper way of disposing of property and dealing with unclaimed property of deceased Muslims. Mr. Speaker, the Waqf is one of the strong Islamic economic instruments, which means religion endowment, which is related to the religious charitable donations globally. It has been a source of development used by building of mosques, madrasas, educational institutions, and libraries. Its benefits are not restricted to the Muslim communities alone. Rather goes beyond religious, cultural, and racial boundaries. Mr. Speaker, Waqf is one of the sources of Islamic economic system. The establishment of Waqf Commission is general in promoting empowerment for the needy, and therefore we need to revive the institution. I strongly believe that the Commission will be effective and the strongest Islamic institution of poverty alleviations. I support. Thank you.
Honorable TJ Kajwang, what was your area prayer about this bill for?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have been listening to members contribute very robustly on this bill. As you know, this bill was committed to the Justice Legal Affairs Committee. We have been processing this bill, and I was requesting, Mr. Speaker, sir, on your own discretion, that this matter would be stepped to another parliamentary session, a parliamentary day, when the House would benefit from the views of members of that committee. I see that a lot of opinions have been well canvassed, but it is necessary, for example, on constitutionality of some of the sections of this bill, and to underscore the fact that this is a trust law. This is a trust law to regulate voluntarily the wishes of a section of the society. I think the House will be well guided if those views were put on the Hansard. And so, Mr. Speaker, I know that this afternoon, this is how far we have gone. But if you stepped us another day, we will have definitely some people who will give you another better perspective on this issue. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, it's not really a point of order. There is no point of order, Honorable Sheikh, there, really. It is myself. The request is made to the Speaker by the Vice Chair of the Legal Committee, which is the relevant legal committee. And even Honorable TJ Kajwang earlier gave the House an update or progress of how far they have reached in terms of the report. And I think it is a fair request that we get a chance to have the report from the committee, but also hear the members of the committee in terms of how they have engaged on the bill, and also give a few more members on this very important bill. So I accede to that request, Honorable TJ Kajwang. Next order.
Order number 12, the Judicial Service Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 33 of 2020, second reading.
Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. Yes, Honorable TJ Kajwang.
Mr. Chairman, this is another bill that I seek your direction. We are grateful that it has been listed on the order paper, and it is a bill which was committed to JLAC for processing. And I should report that the JLAC has robustly processed this bill, but in the course of which there was a High Court decision, a three-bench High Court decision that affected the exact section of law that is intended under the bill, expressing the view that it was unconstitutional. That being the fact, my committee tasked the legal committee, the legal secretariat, to appraise the bill and give us a legal opinion on where the bill stands. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, I have an opinion which has been drafted by the legal office, but that has not been incorporated in the report before the House. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm requesting that, again, this bill be stepped, be adjourned so that that legal opinion will be incorporated for members to see and for members to take an action. It may well be that the committee would be proposing to withdraw the bill, but I do not want to argue before that opinion is before the members and members are able to inspect that. So, Mr. Speaker, any short adjournment on this bill will be enough for us to put that to the table office. I thank you.
Fair enough, Honorable TJ Kajwang. Will give you time so that the committee deals with that tidying up, so that the House is not seen to be acting in vain. So we'll give you space and time. I'm sure when that is done, the House Business Committee will slot this back for the House to consider. Next order.
Order number 13, the Health Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2021, second reading.
Leader of the Majority Party. Yes, you must be acting on his behalf, because you're not the one.
I'm not the one, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
But I've been tasked with that task.
Very well, proceed.
I wish to request the Speaker to step down the Health Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2021, partially for some of the reasons like what Honorable Kajwang has expressed for order number 12. And the report has not been tabled, but it's ready. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, Honorable Seri, I accede to your request, so that is stepped down. Next order.
Order number 14, the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 21 of 2021, second reading.
Yes, Honorable Seri, I guess you are acting still on his behalf.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. For the same reasons as for order number 13, I request, Mr. Speaker, that the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 21 of 2021, be stepped down for now.
That is stepped down, Honorable Seri, for the same reason. Next order.
Order number 15, the Social Assistance Repeal Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2020, second reading.
Honorable Seri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, for the same reasons, I ask, Mr. Speaker, that the Social Assistance Repeal Bill, National Assembly Bill number 16 of 2020, be stepped down.
We shall step it down as well. Next order.
Order number 16, the Landlord and Tenant Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2021, second reading.
Honorable Eseri.
Again, Mr. Speaker, for the same reasons, I request that the Landlord and Tenant Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2021, be stepped down. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Acceded to, so that Honorable Eseri as well. Order number 16 is stepped down. I guess we are done on that. Honorable members, there being no other business, the time being 6:17 p.m. This House started adjourned until Wednesday tomorrow, 4th August 2021 at 9:30 a.m.
I've given it to Mr. General, the director. Yes. He's looking at it and then